Hey guys, I'm Tom the Tech Chap, and I've been waiting for this one. This is the Asus ROG Swift PG27AQDM W OLED gaming monitor, and given the specs, the size, and also the price, this is shaping up to be one of the best all-round gaming monitors, and one you might actually want to buy. I mean, what's not to love? It's a 27-inch 1440p 240Hz OLED with 1000 nit brightness, G-Sync compatibility, FreeSync Premium Pro, and it's also incredibly color accurate with this 10-bit panel. It's like checked every single box that I would want for a gaming monitor. And while we have seen similar specs on bigger gaming displays with like 42 and 48-inch models from Asus and LG, the problem with those is they're even more expensive and they are bloody huge and they barely fit on my desk. This is the first time we're seeing these kind of specs in a 27-inch form factor. Coming in at £1,000 or $1,000, this is pretty pricey for a 27-inch, but compared to, say, the Sony InZone M9, which is about the same price and only offers a 144Hz IPS, this 240Hz OLED seems like a pretty good deal. But it's not alone. This has a cousin, shall we say, from LG. Their 27GR95QE OLED shares the same panel and also shares the new MLA or micro lens array tech, and the LG also has an HDMI 2.1 port. This does not. This is limited to HDMI 2, and we'll come back to that in a second. But the advantage with the Asus is it can get much brighter. This has a much beefier heatsink, so we're topping out at around 1000 nits compared to about 650 on the LG, and so for that alone, I think this is probably gonna be the better option. But let's take a step back. Why are we all drooling over OLED? Well, essentially each pixel emits its own light, and so in a very dark scene can be turned off completely, giving you those perfect blacks without any nasty backlight bleed or blooming, which of course affects the contrast on regular IPS, VA, and mini LED displays. Plus, OLEDs offer fantastic HDR with a wide color gamut, great color accuracy, faster response times, and also a lower input lag. However, the main compromise with these has always been brightness, but with this new Asus ROG and also its LG cousin, we're now seeing much higher brightnesses than older OLED monitors, and it's also now paired with a 240Hz refresh rate. But the boost in brightness is down to the new MLA or micro lens array technology, which is very similar to what I have in my new LG G3 TV, and I'm working on my review video of that. And basically it uses lenses placed across the panel to boost brightness and increase the light scattering, which should also help us get even better viewing angles. And as I rotate that to a 180-degree level, holy moly, look at that. You can see there's almost no brightness or color drop off at all, which on a smaller 27-inch monitor like this is more important. And while obviously you're probably gonna be sat straight in front of it most of the time, that is a bit good, isn't it? And actually together with a new anti-reflective coating, this is still a glossy screen, but we've got this new sort of mattifying AR coating. You're not staring back at yourself in darker scenes. So the improved viewing angles, the anti-reflective coating, the brightness, together with the incredible colors and deep inky blacks that you get with the other panel, and of course that smooth 240Hz refresh rate and that lightning fast response time, I think I'm in love. That said, some IPS and mini LED panels are still brighter and offer even higher refresh rates, and versus this, Asus at least can also give us a clearer image at the same resolution, but I still absolutely adore this for gaming. That's actually quite important, and if I jump out of this and go to the desktop, one of the issues I do have with this, aside from only having an HDMI 2 and not 2.1 port, but that's not really a deal breaker, my biggest issue is the fact that this uses a W OLED panel. I'm not going to say WOLED, where the pixels emit white light with color through sub-pixel RGB filters called WRGB, as opposed to your regular RGB. It's a technical difference that's really imperceptible in games, but it's definitely noticeable on the desktop. Even with this Quad HD 1440p resolution, it comes down to the different way the WRGB layout renders colors, and it results in some blurriness and color fringing around detail and text. This looks a lot less sharp and crisp than it should, and in fact, when I set this up, I thought it was running at 1080p. So this particular kind of panel is definitely behind a traditional OLED or LED LCD screen when it comes to productivity and desktop use, as I say, particularly around text. But honestly, for games, I don't think it's a big deal at all, really. Let's talk about the design of this guy, and the first time I set it up, I was pretty blown away just by how thin this is. Look at that panel, it's like a couple of credit cards. I mean, obviously it doesn't really make that much difference because you've still got a pretty big stand here, although you could Visa mount it. And also we get really, really nice narrow bezels, which I love. Obviously a little bit thicker here for the heatsink. And then we have the stand at the back, which also has a 3.5mm thread if you want to put a webcam or a light up here. Great if you're streaming. And we have the typical stand and ROG base. Nothing really changed there. I do quite like this lighting, and it's kind of teasing me that maybe one day we'll see their anime matrix tech, which we see on the back of some of the laptops on these monitors. I think it'd have to be quite a lot brighter though to make an impact on the back wall, but it's a cool look. And I've also just realized I haven't even done the peel. Look at that. So we've got this tilt, a nice bit of rotation, height adjustment as you would expect, which is quite nice. You can actually rotate this a full 90 if it doesn't pull all my cables out. There you go, look at that. So you can use it that way if you like. Although I wish there was like a little click or locking mechanism when it got back to its default reset position, because I'm not quite sure if that's straight. And then also at the back here, behind this little logo, we have the joystick where you can control the on-screen display. And that's got all your options for adaptive sync, picture and color modes, the lighting effects, and also controlling the aspect ratio, blue light filters, various game genre profiles, and also Game Plus, where you've got FPS counters, crosshairs, all that good stuff that I never actually use. As for ports, connectivity, well, it's okay. We get two HDMI 2s, no 2.1 in sight, which is a bit of a shame, although considering this is a 1440p and not a 4K resolution, it's not actually the end of the world. For laptops and desktops, HDMI will limit you to 1440p at 120Hz or Full HD 240. And sadly, there's no USB-C option for your laptops. But we do also get a DisplayPort, which is what I would recommend if you're hooking up to a desktop PC. And if you're plugging in your PS5 or Xbox, because you might want to use this with your console, especially with that brightness and the OLED screen, again, you don't have those bandwidth limitations because it's not 4K. 1440p, 120, absolutely fine through HDMI 2. At this point, I would normally mention the speakers, but there aren't any, which feels a little bit cheap on a £1,000 monitor. Back to games though, and the motion performance of this is incredible at 240Hz, with a gray to gray response time measured between 0.27 and 0.6 milliseconds, which is some way off the claimed 0.03 milliseconds, but it's still ridiculously fast, and I don't know if you'd actually be able to tell the difference there. As for brightness, I measured 1000 nits HDR peak brightness on a 10% screen window for 3 minutes before the auto dimming kicked in, which then left it around 900 nits, still very bright. In SDR, I measured around 480 nits, which stayed fairly consistent over time, and together with that anti-reflective matte coating, it gives you a really nice gaming experience even in brighter rooms. I would have loved this even more if we'd had Dolby Vision support, but instead we just have HDR10. Although I would recommend if you're watching HDR video and movies to switch to the ASUS Cinema HDR mode, currently the only mode that adapts the image to dynamic tone mapping, which is what you want for superior HDR. And I measured 100% sRGB, 89% Adobe RGB, and also 96% DCI-P3, which is a little way off their claimed 99%, and also 75% of the Rec 2020 standard. And finally, obviously the big concern with OLED is burn-in. Well, I mean, we've been here for a while now, right? We've had OLED monitors and TVs for a few years. These things come with a whole bunch of OLED care settings like pixel refresh and screensavers and time offs and things. So realistically, as long as you don't abuse it and leave it on the same screen with the same HUD, perhaps like a Windows taskbar here, at max brightness for hours and hours and hours with no change, you're not really gonna have any problem. Although it's worth noting that burn-in isn't covered under the warranty, and also I've only had this for a couple of weeks, so I can't tell you long term. Just keep it in mind. So let's wrap up, and I'm sure as you've guessed from my enthusiasm throughout this video, this is an incredible gaming monitor. Although for productivity, for work, probably wouldn't be my #1 choice. But what do you reckon? For a cool £1,000, would you be tempted to buy one of these or give it a miss? Let me know what you make of this guy in the comments below, and also if you've got any questions, I'll do my best to answer. And if you did enjoy this video and want to see more monitor reviews from me, then a like and subscribe would be amazing. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.